All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the debate, Slaughter v. Panster. This is as intense as chocolate versus vanilla and other various things that I can't think of right now because I'm too excited to get this thing going and hear these awesome panelists talk. What I'm going to do first is introduce everybody, and then we're going to get right into the questions. For those of you watching at home, and all of you are watching at home because this is a virtual conference, we are recording this in 2 sessions, so you're going to see me multiple times, and we will be splitting between the 2 different groups. So if things get a little crazy on the video, go with it. This is writing, right? So our participants today, first, Jessica Lewis. Jessica Lewis is a Black author and receptionist. She has a degree in English literature and animal science. As the veterinarian plan didn't work out, she lives with her way funnier than her grandmother in Alabama. When she isn't writing or working, she enjoys watching cooking or HGTV type home shows. She writes both young adult and middle grade fiction, the latter under her pen name Jazz Taylor. Her forthcoming 2023 titles are Monstrous, which is YA, and Starting from Scratch, which is middle grade. Next up, Hannah Cates. Ever since being shanghaied into the secret society printing contraband pulp magazines from the 19th century catacombs, Hannah has sworn to use her powers for chaotic good. As a ghostwriter, editor, and traveling troubadour, she's penned work everywhere from the strategic offices of the Pentagon to the haunted streets of Savannah, which are crooked due to all the rotting dead people. While you can never find her settled down in one place, you'll always find her faithful corgi Bilbo Handsome Pants by her side, and I expect a photo later, so be prepared for that.
I actually have a portrait.
Oh, good. Better. All right, next up, Tracy Badua. Tracy is an award-winning Filipino-American author of books about young people with sunny hearts in a sometimes stormy world. By day, she's an attorney, me too, who works in national housing policy and programs, and by night she squeezes in writing, family time, and bites of her secret candy stash. Also me too. She lives in San Diego, California with her family. Next up is Shameez Patel Papathanasiou. Yeah.
Mostly right. We're gonna go with it.
We're gonna get it better. Quiz me later. I get points too, you get points. Shameez was born and raised in Cape Town, South Africa. She is a civil engineer and mother by day. Mother, but not civil engineer. Hot damn. A fantasy author by night and a chocolate chip cookie fiend somewhere in between. Her literary adventures take her to new worlds filled with magic, monsters, and someone to fall in love with. Her debut novel, right there, The Last Feather, is a threat and danger hidden world fantasy with touches of Suzanne Collins, which fans of V.E. Schwab or Sarah J. Maas will love, and is followed by The Eternal Shadow, the second book in the Celine trilogy. Next up, Rachanee Lumayno. Yeah. All right, Rachanee, we practice and yet still. Rachanee is an actress. Look at this, and look at her fancy microphone too. This tells you she's an actress and voiceover artist. Clearly, she's prepared. A screenwriter, avid gamer, and amateur dodgeball player. She grew up in Michigan, where she spent way too much of her free time reading fantasy novels, which sounds fantastic, honestly. So when she decided to try her hand at writing a book, it made sense that it would be in her favorite genre. The Kingdom Legacy series marks her debut as an author, and check that out. We can see that, the Heir of Amber Fire there. She is also a staff writer for 2 comics, The Criminal King and The Glove. Last but not least is Joel Hamilton. Joel is actually Dr. Joel Anthony Hamilton. He is a registered dietitian by trade and self-published author by choice. He recently switched from writing research articles to self-publishing in 2022, following the passing of his father. His passing, although sad, as he puts it, was freeing and allowed him to pursue his passions rather than seeking his approval or avoiding his disapproval. His series, Mud Crab Kingdom, is a fictional representation of his struggles living in a world hostile to African Americans, mudskins, and the LGBTQIA+ community, those who are different. So with that, thank you everyone for being here. So let's get started. Panthers v. plotters. What does that mean? Well, I want everyone to defend their position. Now, we haven't told everyone at home this yet, but technically this is Pantsers v. Plotters. That means it is 3 versus 3. So at the end of the day, there will be a winner. There will be points. But we need each team to define their position. Tell me what this means. We're going to start with the Plotters because we know they've already mapped out this answer and probably have PowerPoints, have thought about it, probably longer than I even gave them this question. Pantsers, please take this time to figure out what you're going to say. All right, so we will start with Hannah. Hannah is our plotter, yes?
Yes, I am. I didn't know there was so much pressure. I gotta take a deep breath here. But yes, I have my answer, and it is literally map. Let me start out by telling you a story about young, bright-eyed, young, naive Hannah, who was writing her first novel, which was an epic post-nuclear dystopian spy thriller love story with 1920s gangsters and U2 song lyrics. So young Hannah spent years writing this, thinking it was my magnum opus. I bled all over the paper. There were hospital visits. It was heart and soul. And I was imagining myself on Oprah, thinking I was the next Stephen King. So when I ended up with a 440,000 monstrosity with everything but the kitchen sink, I was absolutely crushed by my first query attempts. I realized that not only was the book not marketable, I realized why it wasn't marketable. And I was a complete mess because I was an English major. I mean, I was 22 years old and writing strategy for the Pentagon. I knew I wasn't a bad writer, but I absolutely, it tore me apart. I was like, oh my gosh, I suck. Everything I know about myself is wrong. I'm absolutely a horrible writer. There is no hope I should go live in a trash can. And that's when I decided to explore pantsing, or rather than pantsing, I would like to say storycraft. Turns out I wasn't a bad writer. What I needed to learn was that there's a craft to storytelling. Now, there are great painters, and there's absolutely talent and natural ability when it comes to making any sort of art. But there's also art schools, right? Places you go to study the greats to learn about why they are so great. If somebody writes an amazing story or somebody does an amazing piece of art, I look at it as like, why wouldn't I learn from them? Why wouldn't I study their craft and see about the components that go into this greatness? Plotting doesn't have to be this evil, draconian, dream-crushing Darth Vader. Think about it like going on a road trip. Think about it like a map. If I want to get myself from DC to LA, I'm going to pull out my map and I'm going to say, hey, okay, first off, which direction do I want to go? And second off, which roads do I need to take to get there? I should probably figure out which way west is, unless I want to end up in Texas. And of course, I could wander around. I could travel all the highways, see all the sights. But, if none of this does work and I do end up in Texas, well, I've got no waypoints, no way of telling where I am and how I've gotten there besides cowboy hats and funny accents. Now, just because you have a map doesn't mean you can't take detours or change your destination altogether. In fact, it makes flexibility even easier. Like, let's say you want to get off at exit 62 and go see the world's biggest ball of yarn. You go see that yarn. You decide before the end of your trip, you want to go to Tijuana instead of LA. Boom, you can change your route because you knew where you were going in the first place. And when we're talking about commercial aspirations, that is, if you want to publish commercially, you want to be published traditionally or by a publisher, then there are going to be some parameters that you need to account for, like word count, age range, genre. So plotting isn't necessarily what we like to think of as signing a blood deal with a demon, where your book has to be this way and that way. It's a way to set yourself up for success. So I prefer the term storycraft rather than plotting, but that's just me.
No, I love it. I love it. And I'm just going to say, because you managed to incorporate Darth Vader in there, living in a trash can, visiting yarn, and and also having your own name, 5 points. And as a sort of consolation prize for writing 440,000 words that you had to scrub somehow, and even everyone knows what that's like, and it sucks. Instead of a cat sticker, an imaginary cat sticker, you'll get an imaginary corgi sticker. So make sure to enjoy that one, because it is imaginary, so you can do whatever you want with it. All right,
Best debate ever.
Right. Before we move on to our other plotters, I'd like to hear from the two pantsers that I have on the screen. Rachanee, tell me why pantsing?
Why pantsing? Well, Stephen King's a pantser, so if it's good enough for Stephen King, okay. So first off, I admire plotting. I have tried plotting. It does not work for my brain. I know where I need to get to in the end, but as far as like from point A to point Z, it's like eh. And also, you mentioned I am an actress. So when I wrote my first novel, I was actually taking improv classes. That was during the pandemic. And UCB, which is where I was taking my classes, they're all about character, yes-anding, and finding the game within, how they do their things. They call them heralds. It's always about callbacks. It's about, tying things together. And somehow in my brain, it worked for writing as well, like making a herald out of writing. And so for me, character is king. And if my character's this and they're in this situation, I'm going to yes and it, and this is how they react. And then I'm going to yes and it again. And we're just going to keep yes anding until I come up with something. I don't know what, but that's just kind of how I approach writing. I wish I could be that disciplined, but me and outlines do not get along.
No, I love that though. And I love that you compared it, as you said, you're an actress, you've taken from your world. It sounds like Hannah did too, taking, she knew she was a good writer and all that, but I love that. Yes. And I never considered it that way, but you're right. I mean, that's kind of writing as a yes. And I love that. Absolutely. And because you referenced Stephen King and all that, you're going to get 3 gold stars. And no, I do not know what the conversion rate from stars and points is. I will figure that out by the end. You get 3 gold stars for that. And you also get a corgi sticker. Yeah. Or if you have another breed in mind. I have a lot of cats, I'm sorry to say. So that's why I think cat stickers, but I enjoy corgis are.
I got 2 cats, so it's fine. We can go with cats.
All right, get 2 cat stickers then. Again, corgi to cat sticker. I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right, Shameez. Now, before you start, Shameez, I want to say that I follow you on social media, and I did not connect it until I saw your awesome cover there. That I remember when you posted about this, and I remember, just being some rando on the internet and being so excited for you. So it's
awesome.
So, I know, but it's so funny that like, oh hey, I've seen you online. Hey, I see you now. So anyways.
I mean, I apologize that you've had to read my tweets. So
no, it was
awesome.
In advance.
And in hindsight.
The writing community, we love each other. Like I said, it's clearly a small world, but here we are now. And I'm so excited. Tell me about why you're a pantser.
Okay, I think Rachanee really explained it as perfectly as it could have been explained. But just to take it one step further, I always say that my characters write their own story. And I cannot plot that before knowing exactly who they are and getting to know them. And while they're writing their story, that's when I'm figuring it out. It's the first time it's being told is when it's being written. I am as surprised by those plot twists. I feel every single emotion as it's being written, because half the time I didn't see it coming. And it keeps it exciting for me. Again, like Rachanee mentioned, I wish I were a plotter. Pantsing means an incredible amount of post-writing work, because you edit the crap, I'm allowed to say crap, you edit the crap out of that manuscript so many times. And I'm sure that a plotter wouldn't need to do it as many times, but outlining stunts my creativity, and letting the characters do exactly what they want feels the most authentic for the stories I tell.
I love that. And I will say, I think I'm probably more of a plotter, but I have been there, and I understand where all of a sudden you're thinking, hold on, I did not intend for you to do that, guys. What's going on here? Why are my fingers doing this? And so I think that being the whole of your pantsing, and why I think that is awesome. We know our characters do have a life of their own. And so again, with that, you also get 5 points.
Thank you. I'll take a few cat stickers because I've got one of them over here.
You get 3 cat stickers because because it's evening for you, and it's the end of the day, and we need our cats to snuggle up with at the end of the day. So you get cat stickers.
Dare I say that a cat would be a panzer, just doing what they want.
Oh.
No structure, cannot be trained.
To be fair, probably a dog would too, wouldn't we? Wouldn't we think that? At least the dogs that I've had, like they're all the small dogs that we can't control, and it's like, yeah, okay, you're gonna do what you want. You're a pantser. All right, we're gonna move on to our second group right here. Tracy, I know we've heard from one plotter so far. The pantsers got in there for some, I'd say for some reason, but we know that's because we have two different screens, and I should stop pretending that we're all in the same room, right? But Tracy, I want to start with you, and I do want to apologize first that in your intro, I know I pronounced your name wrong, and I've said it now multiple times. Tracy Badua, yes? Okay,
Yep,
perfect.
Badua.
Tracy, our plotter. We've heard from one plotter so far. I want to hear from you. Tell me, why does this work for you? Why are you a plotter?
So I am a plotter because it is literally the only way I can get work done. So I write in like those weird pockets of time in between the full-time job, the chasing the toddler and the baby, the somehow feeding everyone. Like, I don't know how that happens. Like, as I'm like Uber Eating or something, like I have to be able to sneak in like 10, 15 minutes of writing where I can. And if I don't have a plan for doing that, like it doesn't get done. Like it takes me that long to even remember where I am in the story sometimes. So having some sort of like outline, I do outlines. So having some sort of outline or spreadsheet or something is key for me to get work done as a plotter.
Okay, Jessica, so let's round this out for the plotters. Jessica, can you tell me why plotting versus pantsing? And I'll tell you, I'm a plotter. This will come out throughout this recording. So I'm on team plotter. Sorry, Joel and the other pantsers on the other screen. But so everything you're saying, I'm like, yes, 100%. But let's pretend I'm not. Tell me why. Why plotting for you?
I have a similar schedule as Tracy. So I write on my lunch break when I get home from work and I'm really, really tired. So a plan does help me. I also have really bad anxiety. So I just feel like I need to know what happens. So then I can soothe myself and then I can write the story. I don't have to be like anxious about like, oh no, is this working? Or is this the right way to go? Because I've already worked through that. So that helps me a lot.
Okay, I like that. That makes sense. We've heard a little bit from one of the other plotters. They talked about road mapping, kind of like, this idea of needing a roadmap. It seems like Tracy and Jessica, you might say the same thing. You're both talking about outlines. Tracy mentioned spreadsheets. I know some pantsers like spreadsheets for other reasons too, but for writing, this idea of a roadmap is important. Is that would you kind of agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Okay, good, perfect. See, team plotter, you're all on the same page. Perfect. All right. Joel, last pantser up, you've had the most time to prepare, which for a pantser is a good thing, right? I'm giving you all of this time to think about it. Maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe I should have made you do lightning quick, because that's the point of pantsing, right? It's just whatever comes out. But because I've given you the most time, I expect the best answer. So why are you a pantser, Joel?
So I'm a pantser because, can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
So I came from a really strong research background, and I also work in healthcare. So everything is rigid, everything is scheduled, everything is type A personality stuff. So when it comes to writing, I like the freedom that it's giving me. So I can just kind of go by whatever I'm feeling at that moment. I can write whatever I want. Nothing is confined, and it's really free-minded. So I like that aspect because, again, working in that structured life, kind of going over to something that's so free, it's very enjoyable.
Okay, I like that. And I forgot to do this when our first two plotters, or our last two plotters actually, because like I said, we've had the other one on the other team there. Joel, you are going to get 5 gold stars for that answer. Yeah, right. And I've been tossing around stickers too. So I'm a cat person, so I've been giving out cat stickers. There was a corgi sticker at one point. If you have a breed of interest, enjoy that invisible sticker as a positive for that great point. And for my two plotters here, Jessica and Tracy, 15 points between the two of you. Still have no idea what the different, how we grade points versus stars, but it's for me to figure out, right? This is the plotter part, right? And 14 gold cat stickers specifically for everybody on this team because I made you wait to give you those points. So, again, I won't say they're consolation cat stickers, but they were. So I'm sorry, they are. Next question for everybody. We have a lot of points. We have a lot of stars. We have a lot of stickers. We got a lot more to go during this time. I still want to talk kind of broadly. And I think you guys may have already done this a little bit in answering the first question and sort of why it works for you and, why Team Pantser, why Team Plotter. But give me some more benefits. Like if it's not just why, pretend that I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing, which is generally often. Try to get me on your team. At the end of this, I get to pick, right? The winner, but I get to pick. So tell me, what are the benefits to your position? And Pantsers, I want you to go first because I know once you get started, you'll never stop, and I will have to cut you off. Just be aware, and you may lose points or stars. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But we'll start with you. Convince me. Why pantsing? Maybe Shameez, we can start with you on that one.
Sure. Well, I mean, for me, the biggest benefit of pantsing is that you can start immediately. Your story can be written today, which is very appealing for somebody with zero patience. So I think that is my first point. I don't know if Rachanee would like to add on that while I think a little bit further.
I like that. I do like that. There no prep. Start today. No worrying about having everything as long as you got your brain and something to write on, right? All right,
it does keep it fresh. It does keep it exciting. But I will say, because I also come from a screenwriting background, and one of the biggest issues right now in movies is that they are boring because they are not character driven. And that, I think, is a downfall with over plotting. You might focus too much on the plot and not the characters. People want to love the characters and root for the characters. I think when you pants, you can be more character focused.
Okay. All right. Response. Let's do a response from one of our plotters before we move on to the last of Pantser and the rest of the plotters. So Kate, we're going to start with you. What's a response to that? Or Hannah, why did I call you Kate? I don't know.
Well, I get it all the time. No worries. I love bennies. Let's talk about the benny. Well, you can focus while you're plotting on the character arc. That is also a thing that you can plot out. So that's an immediate response. But at any given time, when you've got a roadmap, you know where you are. I have yet to read the perfect first draft. If you have written it, congratulations, kudos to you, you are awesome. But if you are immortal like the rest of us, you are probably drafting. And instead of looking at this giant, monstrous, horrific 440,000 word manuscript that you have brought into the world, you got the skeleton right there. You don't have to start hacking off limbs. You can just go back and check the X-ray. So recently, I work a lot in developmental editing. And I had an author who came to me and said, Hannah, my act 2 is falling flat. I just can't pinpoint it, but something's wrong. So as an editor, I can't go and tell this person like, well, oh, you need to do this or that. You need to chop this off and you need to make it sound like this. It's not a magic pill. There's no flat answer to what makes a good book. That's the creative part of it. That's why we do need you to pants and come up with creative ideas. What I can help you do is look at the anatomy of Act 1 and Act 3 and see how your plot points are playing off of each other. Where are your character and your plot points? Rachanee, to your point, like that's a fantastic point. Like just having a plot-driven movie is extremely boring because we don't care about anybody. So if you're extremely plot-driven, where is the character arc? Where is it showing up? Where are those nodes where character and plot arc intersect? Are the motivations for your character clear and compelling? Is there adequate tension to keep that third rail rolling? And the other huge benefit of plotting, which I get a lot of because I edit submission packages, is you get a jump start on your submission materials. And I'm sorry to inform you guys, but even when you have signed with an agent, or even after you've published your first book, that doesn't mean you stop writing queries, pitches, and synopses. If anything, you're going to have to write more of them. So usually when I start writing, I actually write my query first, like a total psycho, because I want to see with the idea that I have, number one, is it actually hooking? When I get it down on paper, does it actually still interest me? Do I have a main character? Does that main character have a motivation? Do they have an obstacle, or in the plot arc, do they have that hero's flaw? What must they overcome to get past that obstacle? And then what are the stakes? And if I can write a compelling query, if I can answer all 5 of those questions, I know I've got a compelling concept. And having an outline not only makes redrafting, editing, and correction so much easier, it also helps you start thinking about that submission process, if that is your goal, before you spend 2 years and 440,000 words invested in the project. So I would argue that you wouldn't build a house without a blueprint. And as a surgeon, you probably shouldn't go chopping somebody up without knowing what you were chopping into and why you're chopping in the first place.
Okay, I like that. Well, we're going to give screen 2 a chance to answer this as well. And I want to come back and ask Rachanee, if you wouldn't mind. So there have been some discussions of this idea of these plot points and things. How does that work for a pantser? So if this is the comment that we have, is that plotting tells us where we're going. And I love Hannah's comments about, you need a roadmap. You will absolutely have a blueprint when you're building a house. You will have as someone who does healthcare law, I know exactly what those doctors have to do in surgery because I represent them when they don't. There are these steps. What's your response, or how would you respond to how do pantsers handle that issue?
I think of it more like my roadmap is more like boundaries. I'm writing a fantasy novel. We're not going to have aliens suddenly show up. I mean, you could, but that's bizarre, right? You don't throw the entire thing at the wall and see what sticks. You do have parameters that you're like, this is the boundaries of my world. This is what they can and cannot do. I'll be honest, with my first book, I kind of had a world built in my mind. I kind of had a magic system, as I'm now on book 3. Now it's beginning to figure it out more, because life is like that, right? I mean, I don't know where I'm going to be the next day. Ironically, I have a planner. I love my planner. I'm a very religious user of my planner. I know what my life looks like for the week, but I don't know where I'll be next week. I could be, somewhere else on vacation next week. I don't know. You kind of take things as they come too. And I feel like when you're pantsing, that's kind of how it is for your characters too, right? Like, they have their boundaries of what's going to happen. Like the big bad might come up, but does the inciting incident have to be on page 10? Is it cool if it happens on page 50? Like, if we break some of those rules, maybe it's actually more exciting.
Okay, Shameez, any comments on that? It's okay if no. I mean, I'm literally just, hey, what do you think?
I do have thoughts.
Yes. Okay.
Well, just the map analogy, I love it. For me, it's as if I'm going on a road trip. I kind of know which direction to drive in. I'm not going to use my map because I trust that I'll follow the road signs, and if I keep going, I'll get there. Because it's not that a pantser doesn't know what story elements are required. We know approximately where the inciting incident is supposed to be. The midpoint, thankfully, it's in the name. The climax and resolution. So even while pantsing, you are aware of, oh, something's supposed to happen here. Let's feel it out. And it's like spotting a landmark on the way. You're like, okay, I am going in the right direction. I was supposed to go past that mountain or whatever it may be. So that's my input on pantsing and a roadmap. I forgot what the question was. Again,
no, I love it.
on
And
brand.
actually, this makes me wonder. Well, maybe we need to poll everyone who's watching this at home, how they plan trips. So if you're a plotter, does that mean when you go to Paris, you have literally everything? I know where I'm going to go first, second. I know which restaurant I'm going to go to. In which case, like I said, I think I'm a plotter and I do that. over organized is the question. And then as a pantser, do you say I'm going to Paris and we'll just see what happens? I wonder if any of that correlates or if it's different. Yeah.
Can I jump in and
Please.
just say that I am an engineer. I live my life by spreadsheets, multiple spreadsheets. I love a spreadsheet so much. It's inappropriate. And yet, the second you tell me to populate a spreadsheet with story elements before the story has been written, my brain just completely shuts down. For some reason, I cannot mix technical and creative. Everything else is in a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet is created after the first draft to make sure that all the story elements fall where they're meant to, but just not before.
Okay. Well, you're going to get 3 gold stars for talking about your inappropriate love of sheets, because I'm into that apparently. And all right, let's see what second screen says. All right, second screen, second group here. Let's finish this up for our everybody, free for all round, as it were. Joel, I'd love to start with you as our last pantser. What are the benefits to plotting or pantsing specifically for you? I mean, you've given us some, you told us why you do it. Pretend that this is a debate, and it is a debate, right? I think I've said that a couple times too, but pretend that like at the end of the day, you will win if you convince me to change. So to change from plotting. So how would you do that to me or to a new writer, to somebody who's not done pantsing and you really want them to be on Team Pantser at the end of this debate?
Okay, that was excellent. And I also forgot the question. Oh no.
Is that a pantsing thing too?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because your brain is, you're moving, you're not, yeah, okay, I love it. Benefits, why pantsing? You've told us why you, but let's go broader to not just why it works for you, but why pantsing as a whole. If you're trying to convince somebody, yes, be a pantser, join us, join whatever side we want to call it, whatever team we want to call it, Team Pants. Why?
Yeah. So one, really starting with the story, everyone kind of has a general idea of what you're going to do, but you never really know how you're going to get in that journey. And it's really freeing to be able to just start there, go with whatever flows there. And also, I like writing with music, so I'm a big anime fan. I like anime soundtracks when I write. That really helps to guide my thoughts. But it's also interesting to see how the music, so whether it's happy music, really scary music, really sad music, how that influences the story. So that's another freeing way to kind of bring out new parts of the story that I had no idea was going to happen. And also, when I first started doing my writing and everything like that, it was more so for a healing aspect. So whenever I started writing, all these things started bubbling up, all these topics started coming to mind. And I started writing all these things. I'm like, why am I writing this? Until I went back and edited. I'm like, oh, this is where the healing really begins. So I thought that was a really interesting part of being a pantser. So you get these unexpected storylines, you get this unexpected healing, and it keeps you engaged. So when people say, what's coming next in the series? I have no idea. When people say, oh, I was shocked this happened, I was also shocked because I have no idea what's going to be happening. So it keeps me engaged, keeps me thrilled, and it keeps me really tied into the story. And that makes me want to continue without stopping or reading roadblocks or being deterred and those kind of things. So.
I love that. And I really like how I think there's 2 big things there, but the healing certainly, and from your bio, it seems like writing it was a big part of that. And we can try to script healing sometimes, right? But not always. And so that makes perfect sense. I want to follow up before we move on to our plotters. I have a follow up on that about the music. So how you write, do you have playlists in mind where you're like, I want to write a happy chapter, so I'm going to listen to some really happy music, or I know that I'm in a point where or is it just whatever comes on and that's where your story goes? Is there any sort of planning on that perspective of it?
So there's only slight planning. So if I'm really in the weeds of a really dark story or something that I know is going to be sadder, I know which anime soundtrack's going to be really depressing. But if I'm just kind of la 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 la, like writing as I always do for the most part, I just kind of throw on an anime soundtrack on YouTube and kind of let it go. And I'll be writing, oh, this is a really sweet story. The music is quaint. And then without me realizing, the music it's getting darker. It's getting like the anticipation is building, and then it's coming out in the story. And I don't know why it happened until I read back. I'm like, oh, I listened to this song, and I can hear each story and each. Well, I can hear each song in each chapter that I'm going through as I'm editing. So I think that's another added benefit. So.
That is really awesome. That is totally awesome. 8 cat stickers, because you particularly because it's not just music, it's anime soundtracks. Like, I mean, that is very specific. That is a very, that is a type of world and a type of headspace for all of them, happy or sad, right? And so I love that. And an additional 5 gold stars for you. So I hope somebody's keeping track. I'm trying to, the plotter in me, but we'll see how this goes at the end. All right, plotters. Jessica, I would love to start with you for this side. We've heard from one plotter already, but convince me, what are the benefits to plotting?
I was just gonna say, I also listen to anime soundtracks when I write. So me and Joel, we've got the process. That's the way to go.
You need to compare at the end, make sure you have all, the soundtrack.
Yes.
So the first one you're not missing. This is great.
Yes, I'm sure.
Building.
You know what? We're gonna do that after. So the reason, wait, what was it again? I lost it. I'm sorry. I'm just like Joel.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I love it. And yeah, it's plotting. Why plotting? Assume I'm a new writer, and you're going to get a prize at the end, and there's no prize at the end of this debate, but let's in the real world, let's assume that someone is going to give you a giant prize with a pot of money if you convince this person plotting or pantsing. So we've gotten Joel, we've gotten the pantsers on the other team. Tell us for the plotters on this side, so you can earn that giant prize that doesn't exist, basically.
Okay. So I'm looking at it from this lens. The deadlines in traditional publishing is disgusting. So plan. It takes maybe it takes me about 4 or 5 weeks to write a plan, and then the draft only takes for me to actually write out. So then that's only 2 months out of the year that I've spent drafting, and so the rest of it can go towards editing. And I really need that crunch time because I have a full-time job. So if you work and you have other obligations, plotting is the way to go, is then shorter. So not every book, but some books I have very little editing to do because I've planned it out ahead of time. So I'm a very lazy person, so that's very nice for me. So if the less work I have to do and still product, that's what I'm gonna go for.
Okay, and it cut out for 1 second. I want to make sure I got this for everybody listening at home, and everyone is, because this is an online conference, and I've actually made that joke twice now in the same panel. So I'm sorry, everybody. I forget what I say sometimes. This is why I should be a plotter when I do this. How many weeks do you spend drafting? You said you spend 45 weeks planning. How many weeks drafting?
The same, 4 to 5 weeks drafting.
45. Okay.
Yeah.
And so the efficiency and
2
everything,
months.
that's good for you. Okay, I love it. All right. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember if I gave you points last time, so you're going to get 7 gold stars for that answer, and for working through some of the internet issues that hopefully were edited out and nobody's seeing these. But we'll find out when we all watch this that day. All right, Tracy, last one up. This is for the win now. I mean, we've heard from everybody. We've heard from all the plotters now, all of the pantsers. You are our last plotter.
I love it. It's like, hey, no pressure.
Right.
This gigantic prize that may or may not exist is like all on your shoulders.
I'm putting a lot of, and I'm doing this intentionally. There's a lot of pressure. Like, oh my God.
Somewhere
pressure.
you have a whole stack of cat stickers and you're just gonna throw it in the trash if I get this wrong.
Behind me that no one will ever see because of how these backgrounds work. It's great. So Tracy, tell me, sum it up for the plotters.
I mean, it's tough because I feel like everyone's probably touched on it by now of like, just really the better organization and really like kind of pacing and making sure you're not dropping any details. So like an example is there was a time in my life where I tried to pants something and then I would send it to a critique partner and they'd be like, Tracy, you had this character in chapters 1 and 2 that just like was completely gone by the end. They just like wandered off and like into the sunset. I was like, oh yeah, I should probably keep track of those. And that thus was born the plotter mind of like, I lost an entire character. Like this is, I need to,
That's a lot.
I need to have a spreadsheet. This is the only way I can do it. And what's sad is like, I'm realizing now that my other big argument for plotting, for being a plotter, is just like this straight up, like kind of pro-capitalism approach we've been saying of like, you'll be more efficient. Like you will write very quickly and to your deadlines. And the people like who will pay you will love you because you'll do that. So, capitalism, sorry. Oh God, I just lost a cat point, didn't I?
I'm not going to take one away. I may just not give you as many, but
it's like you'll just show it. There you go.
I've got, well, what do I have in front of me? I do have some random things in front of me, but actually no cat stickers. I think that's fair. I think that's a fair, and I think Jessica touched on it too, sort of as its efficiency thing. I mean, sorry, you're hearing that noise because the only thing of interest I have in front of me are these teeny tiny ducks. So, the panelists might get these sent in the mail, but after that capitalism thing, Tracy, I don't know. I'm kidding, but capitalism that's true. I mean, we write for catharsis. We write because we love it. We write for a lot of reasons, but a lot of people also write because we do want to make money. I mean, capitalism, we monetize our hobbies even if writing is more than a hobby. So, I mean, I think that's really fair. That's a fair point. You can be more efficient. You can, if 2 months outlining, drafting, giving you some time for editing, you can churn out a lot of books, right? Yeah. Well, okay, so no cat sticker. Actually, that's not true. You'll get a cat sticker just because, again, capitalism is real. We live in a capitalist. How can we not? I mean, how many times can I say capitalism in like a 30-second stand either? 7 points each for Jessica and Tracy, for both of you. And we'll finish out that. So, all right. And I think after all of that, everybody gets 10 points for that very impassioned discussion of these benefits. I want to split up the groups again. So we're obviously already in splits. I want to split you all up for a second. We're going head to head. Enjoy that. Again, from those of you watching at home, technically we already are. Nobody here is in the same place. We've got 2 different videos, but we're going head to head. We're going to have 2 pantsers versus a plotter, 2 plotters versus a pantser. The individual who was representing their team alone was purely circumstantial. It has nothing to do with how I feel about them, as far as you know. No. So let's get started. Pantsers here. You've done 2 nanos, and we know National Writing Month, right? You've done 2 of those within a month. My God, the amount of writing you've gotten done. What do you do next? How do you get that free flow of words? You've done all this. What's the next step? How do you get it? Shameez, you've already told us editing is a bear after it. So what do you do? Once you've gotten something down and you've gotten your 80,000 words or 100,000 words or 440,000 words, what do we do?
I leave it alone. I leave it alone for a good month, at least. And I go back with fresh eyes, and that's when the beautiful spreadsheet is created. And as I go along my story, I mark out where there are highs, where there are lows. Maybe there's a few chapters after each other where people are fighting and dying. And I'm like, maybe a little bit too much death in a row. Let's split this up a bit. And maybe then there's 2 chapters of smut, and that's also a little bit too much. A little bit at the beginning, a little bit at the end. And once the spreadsheet has been created, I then go back and edit accordingly. And then it goes out to beta as a much cleaner, more coherent story that ultimately lived in my head, but needed to be vomited out onto page before it could make any sense.
Okay. Hannah, I want you've heard this. So you've heard how once we've gotten it all down, what, at least in this pantser view, how she does the next steps. How does that compare to what you do? To your writing process? So you've obviously haven't done, well, maybe you've done 440,000 in a month, and maybe it was all planned. I assume it was all planned out, but what are your next steps?
Well, I think I just want to acknowledge something that Shameez said, which was beautiful, about how that there can be a place for spreadsheets, but it doesn't have to be in the beginning. My ultimate answer to this, because I mean, I write, but I also have another hat. I have an editing hat. I'm a resident editor here at WriteHive. I have worked with bestsellers. One of the last books I worked with just sold to Simon & Schuster. I would say whatever the hell you want to do. That's what I say to my writer, like whatever is intuitive. And this is a big thing that people get wrong with plotting, because I think it's some draconian. Can I wear my mustache now?
Yes. You will get extra points and stars for how long.
Hey, I'm the big bad plotter, and I'm here to steal your creativity and give you rules.
No, I posit that being a plotter and understanding these things that both, all these authors have mentioned, when is a midpoint, what is a catalyst, understanding these makes you a better pantser. Your process, and especially with plotting, whether you use Save the Cat, whether you use Dan Harmon's Story Wheel, whether you use the classic Hero's Journey by my man, Joseph Campbell, you've got to find what works for you. So trust your intuition. If you are ready to get going, get on the motorbike and take off, get on the motorbike and take off. And then if you run into a stuck point, or, like you get into a rest stop on our road trip, take out your map if you feel like you need to. As the great pirate Barbossa said in the Pirates of the Caribbean, that the rules are more like guidelines. Rachanee, I love how you put they're bumpers on your bowling alley. They're guides. They're not hard and fast evil empire rules. Plotting points are tools, not rules. So you as an author intuitively need to play with these ideas and ask yourself, like, oh my gosh, and I've gotten into this. Actually, the book that I'm plotting right now, I started with a spreadsheet and I literally had to stop, because I'm like, oh wow, I'm killing my soul. Oh wow, I'm being a vampire control freak. I had to recognize that within myself and stop myself. Maybe you have to pants your first draft. Maybe you have to pants all your drafts. That doesn't mean that you can't go back at any time in your process and say, hey, I'm having trouble. Something just doesn't feel right. Let me use these tools available to me and work them out however I need them. Nobody gets to tell you what your process is. These are tools to help you find that process with yourself. So what do you do after this? I say whatever the hell you want.
I love it. 15 points for the mustache, and another 30 stars for still the mustache. I'm really into the mustache apparently too. My God, things I'm learning about myself today. No, honestly, for that,
it's a little crooked, but I think I'm going to keep it.
I kind of like that. I did notice, and I was, again, it's the organizer in me that I was like, oh no, but that's okay.
I mean, but again, I respect go with the flow. So your mustache is a little crooked. Like, just because I'm a pantser doesn't mean I'm a plotter, doesn't mean I'm a square.
To be fair, I think my eyes are crooked. Like, I always notice that in video. And so, that's the world. The world is not exactly, well, it's not straight, I'll tell you that. One thing that I do want to do, I really feel like we should get the marketing team listening to this, because of the amount of fantastic slogans and things that you guys have already come up with. This group one, tools not rules, all these, oh my gosh, somebody better be writing these down so that somebody can market them later. I'll just tell you that much. All right, this one is specifically for you, Rachanee. You're on deck for this one. I'm going to toss out an opinion of pantsing, and it's going to be a stereotypical opinion, I'll tell you that much. And I want you to tell me your thoughts. And if you want to yell at me for even coming up with a question, you can. I did come up with this question by myself, so whoops. All right. Okay. The idea is that a pantser always has this sense of wonder and surprise about the story's trajectory and ending, just like the reader, something a plotter doesn't, which implies that you don't know the ending. You have no idea what the heck's going on until, oh my God, we're at the end. Hey, I did that. True? False? Is that how you see pantsing? Is that this idea that there is, I know you've been talking about boundaries, but do you know, if we're using our roadmap here, you're going to stay within the country, right? But do you know where the end point is? Or is it as much a surprise to you as it is to your readers?
First of all, Hannah with the teacup and the mustache, love it. It's cracking me up.
Why there's so many stars for this lady.
I know. Well deserved. I love it.
Yeah.
You obviously planned ahead with the mustache.
No, this is completely pants.
How is it? You're like, I happen to have a mustache in my back pocket. I love it. It's awesome. I know the ending. Sometimes the ending might tweak a little bit, but I know where I'm going with the ending. So I'd say false.
Okay.
2.5.
Okay. I'm sorry, we're going back to you, Kate, because like I said, you are the sacrificial lamb for our plotters in this particular round here.
Bring it on.
Now that opinion of pantsing, it was kind of a neg, right? Like it's a negative compliment, a little bit, but it was honestly, to me, it's more of a negative opinion of plotters, which is this idea that plotters don't experience that wonder and surprise when writing. And I think we've already established that maybe that's not true when we were talking about what our characters getting away from us, but tell me your thoughts for your plotter team here.
Well, I love that 2.5. I'm going to use that. And yes, I actually do have a bag of mustaches in my desk. I bought them for D&D and didn't use them all. And I was like, this is the perfect, because actually, I think you hit it on the head. I really think you hit it on the head. And this is why your writer, like being a writer, listen to your heart, like listening to yourself and listening to your intuition is so important, because the danger with plotting is you can get analysis paralysis. You can absolutely suck the joy trying to micromanage and scientifically. I mean, I was a nuclear engineer. I will spreadsheet the shite out of that story. I will try to bully it into submission, and then I just find myself miserable. So this trope that like, oh, plotters suck the joy and take all the fun out of writing. Yeah, absolutely, we do at an extreme. So understanding that there is a balance and that you need to be aware of your own process and not be beholden or attached to somebody else's if it doesn't work for you. You need to find what's right for you. And if you are feeling stifled, if you are feeling like you're Scrooge McDucking your own manuscript, stop it. Don't do it. Go out. Like that's why I love Dungeons and Dragons, because it's this amazing outlet with no commercial repercussions where I can just put in a ye old Bucky's gas station in the middle of my plot. Like, go have fun, go do something fun. If plotting doesn't work for you, don't do it.
I love it. I absolutely, and I will say, I came up with these questions, or these questions were designed before knowing who was who on which team. And I have to say, when I knew this question was coming and I knew that Hannah was going to be the plotter answering it, I did kind of want to kick myself for asking Hannah, who I have just met today, whether something is not full of wonder and fun, because come on, Kay, like,
can I show you
because of course
my portrait of Bilbo?
Please, yes, we talked about your portrait of your corgi. Yes.
It's so hard with the background. Here he is. But
Look at him. Very fancy.
Bilbo's a
just kind of he was just in the air too for a second. That was
He's
great.
very strict and draconian. Definitely a plotter.
I love it.
Can I just say something to
Absolutely.
Hannah's point?
Of course,
And
yeah.
actually, so Hannah, this is really interesting that you brought it up because I also play D&D. And do you game master or do you play only?
I play both, but I mean, I absolutely love GMing.
Okay.
I love playing
so
God.
So then my question to you is, are you the type of DM who has written out the module and you have an idea of where they're going? Or do you just kind of go, okay, guys, it's an open world. Let's see where you go.
Well, this is an amazing question. I started with, of course, the same way I started writing novels, this epic Suicide Squad. I knew what each NPC was going to say, and players immediately broke my game. I was heartbroken because I felt like very personally like they were trying to break my story. And that was really an example of me where I had to learn, like, hey, you got to let your characters, your players, do their own thing. You got to sandbox a little bit. Like, I built this whole encounter where the players were supposed to like go to this elven city through the woods, but then my players were like, oh, the city borders a lake. Let's just take a boat. It's like, boat? No.
That wasn't in the thing. Yeah.
But it was a huge learning experience I'm going to take this off because it's actually, I'm talking too emphatically. That's a great question. I am the kind that wrote out this huge story, and it was a great experience because it encouraged me to let go a little bit and to reclaim that whimsy and wonder.
Because it's funny because my first campaign, I did plot everything and I knew where I needed them to go each session. And you're right, the players have a mind of their own. And I'm like, the second campaign, I was just like, you know what, you guys, here's where you start. Let's see where you go. And everyone had a lot more fun because D&D is a storytelling game, right? But there are some really great dungeon masters who plot it all out and they have the module, or they just kind of let things go. And so that's why I was like, I wonder what kind of DM you are, because you can tell what kind of DM I am. I'm like everything improv, you know?
If you have a new game starting, please hit me up after this because I would love it. Sorry to invite myself, but I'm like,
let's do it.
This is
I love
this happening.
Totally.
Well, I love one of the things that we're getting out of this group here is that, well, one, this idea of this plotter that never ever doesn't, never goes away from the outline, and this idea that a pantser never ever looks at, where things are going. We're completely tossing that aside. But I also what I like is that just because maybe you're super detail oriented or super organized, love the spreadsheet, Shameez, in one part of our life doesn't mean we do that on the other part of our life. That writing, just because I may seem like a really type A person, and I am, doesn't necessarily mean that I will be a type A writer, even though I am. But that's, that not everyone's like that. And so this idea of that there is flexibility. And at the end of the day, it's about getting your story out there. Yes, Shameez, hit me.
I just want to jump in on something that you said. And even each story can be written differently. I mean, while I'm pantsing my way through it at the moment, I would like to write a mystery and I would like to plot that beforehand. And it doesn't mean that when I revert back to romance that I can't pants that. Each story has its own way of being told.
Something, forever. Yeah. I like that too. Awesome.
There is no pantsing or plotting blood oath. Anybody who tries to make you sign one, like, beware. That's not real.
Blood oaths in general, I feel like just a lawyer, nobody's lawyer here, but just as an aside, maybe think about blood oaths just in general. All right. Well, we're going to move to our second group, and they are going to tell us about, well, it's going to be their one-on-one, as it were, and the sacrificial pantser over there. Now we're head to head. So the other side has done their question, and they've done their answering, and Hannah has done really well against Rachanee and Shameez as the only plotter versus two pantsers. And on this team, Joel is the sacrificial pantser against two plotters. So sorry, Joel, you did not sign up for this. You know, it was purely by chance and by, you know, whoever's name showed up first in my email. But we are head to head. And so what we're going to do here is, this is just us. So it's just us talking right now. And I'm going to ask you a question. I'm actually going to start with the plotters. And I think Jessica may have already answered this, but just in case, I'm going to give it a little more depth, perhaps. And so the question that I have is more of like a hypothetical. So you have 30 pages of world building, a 20-page outline. Your magic system is not perfect, but it's getting really, really close. At what point do you start writing? Do you wait? Is that what it takes to start writing for you as a plotter? That much detail, or do you start earlier? How do you know when it's time to write? And then my secondary question is, once you do start writing, how strict are you keeping that outline that we've discussed in that world building? So Tracy, let's start with you.
Yeah, so that's interesting with the 30 pages of world building and like all of that. That's actually more than I would do to, you know, pre-plot. So, you know, I guess that would be, I guess there's a whole range of what you would consider a plotter. I guess I'm on the lighter side where, but I also write contemporary fantasy. So I'm not creating like whole other worlds with like governance systems and religions. It's like, nope, just kind of copy paste and then throw some magic in there. But I would know that it's time to write when I kind of, you know, at least have an idea of, I at least like to try to plot out chapters so that I would know when like to ramp things up and when to kind of like bring things down. And I've learned to not be as strict to following the outline because, you know, I'm a terrible debater because of the risk of ceding some points to the pantsers. Like there's something to be said of when you're writing, you surprise yourself. You're like, oh, I guess the character would do that. Like they wouldn't do this thing that I planned in my head like a month ago. They would do this other thing. And so I'll have to kind of tweak the outline afterwards to try to kind of adjust for that to be more true to what I think a character would do or what would actually make more sense of like, oh, I guess a 14-year-old probably wouldn't drive down the highway and not get pulled over or something like that. So there really is, you know, I think it's do the best you can to plot so you at least kind of know where you're going. But yeah, if your outline starts to like not make sense for you and it's to the point where it's actually kind of making you anxious about writing of like, oh, I don't want to do this because I know it's going badly, like don't force yourself to write that outline.
And okay, so this idea of like this whole world, so like you said, contemporary fantasy, so you don't have to worry about that as much. I mean, maybe there's a secondary world in it, but the 20K outline is too much. You said you plot chapters. I mean, do you kind of have an idea of like rising action, falling action? I mean, are you following Save the Cat or Hero's Journey? I mean, do you try to tick it into those boxes, or do you have your own way of sort of figuring that out?
Yeah, it's generally kind of like following the whole like rising action and like that kind of thing. And I have a spreadsheet because I'm that kind of person. But again, it's more bare bones and that I at least like write out maybe a sentence or two of what I think the chapter is going to be about. And then for me, I really try to keep character development or character growth at the forefront. So I actually have a whole other column where I'm like, how is the character going? Like, what are they going to do in this chapter? How is it actually propelling them forward as a character? So that's like kind of what I try to balance with each. Because if I can't like, and oh, look back all the way up in case it's not clear. Let me see what side this is. I write middle grade. So if my middle grade is like the first draft is going to be like 30,000 words, if I'm 20,000 words into world building, like I've done something wrong. So that's probably why I start out so sparse, because it's like, why, you know, there's no reason for me to spend all that much time kind of pre-planning if the actual product itself probably shouldn't be more than 50K.
That makes sense too, and that's sort of making plotting work for you as well. And I really like, we heard about this with the other team. I guess I'm going to say characters are talking to you, and so you know that they tell you, and so at some point that's where you might get off your outline, is because they wouldn't have done this. And so I think it was the pantsers are the ones who mentioned it, but I think both plotters and pantsers, our characters do sometimes talk to us and do things that we don't want, right? So,
yes.
Okay, Jessica, let me hear you on this. So when we've heard maybe it's not 30 pages of world building, maybe it's 2 or maybe it's 100, and then you've got your massive outline, and we know you spent 4 to 5 weeks prepping it. How do you know when it's time to write? What is finally taking that turn to, okay, pen to paper or fingers to keys?
So I'm a little bit more strict than Tracy, I think. So I firmly believe that characters are not real. I am the god of this universe, and they will do what I say. So,
I
so
love
what
that. I love that. Yeah, you are. Yeah, we all are. And there's something about that, and why we make other people do things, right, in writing. So no, I love it. So okay,
exactly.
All right. They are going to do what you say.
Yes, so I very rarely get surprised. Like when I'm drafting, my characters do what I want them to do because they do what I want them to do. So I very rarely have to like change my outline, but I do spend a lot of time on my outline to get that perfect. So I treat it almost like a 0 draft. I do better when I have a longer outline. My longest to date was 27 pages, which was pretty much like a draft 0. It was like 10K. But I just do much better when I can see the details and not leave it vague, because the details is where the book shines, right? I think. So I just write it out as detailed as possible. And then my poor CPs, I give it to them so they can check it over. And they'll say, like, oh, this, her arc's a little weird here, or the pacing's off here. And then I'll fix the outline first. And then once the outline is perfect, then I'll draft. And then the book pretty much comes out the same as the outline.
How detailed? So I know we're talking 10,000 words. I mean, that's sometimes, I've seen prologue books that size, like book 0 of a 10 series, like 0 is going to be that long. How detailed do you get though with it? I mean, you talked about pacing, you talked about arcs. Tracy's told us that we're talking plotting chapters and sort of, certain actions. Do you plot out, sometimes do you plot out conversations? I mean, explain to us exactly like what someone who's like, yes, I need that rigidity. I need that to be as detailed as possible. And I outline very similarly, but tell us how you do that.
Yes, I do. What my best thinking time is like when I'm on a walk or like on a commute or in the shower or something. And so I'll plan out the scene that I want in my head, how the dialogue I want to go, what the characters are doing, where they're standing, and then I'll just write all that down. And I can change that if I want to later, but if it comes out the way I like it, the way that I've thinking about it, then I think that deserves to be in the book. So I just make sure I'm as detailed as possible. The only thing that I don't really do is I don't do chapters, because sometimes I like to do it in scenes, because sometimes the scene can be combined or they can be separate, or like a scene can stretch multiple chapters. So I don't like to box myself in that way. I figured that out when I'm writing it down, but I do scenes instead of like chapters.
Okay. Thank you, Jessica. That was awesome for that. And again, I really like, I like how for a 27-page outline, 10,000 words, you are going to get 5 points. And
thank you.
You're welcome. And let me think of a fun, and a dachshund sticker specifically, because they're cute when they're cute all the time, especially cute when they're babies. And Tracy, for telling us about how you plot chapters, but also characters talking to you and recognizing that. And also I like that you sort of pointed out that depending on what genre you're in, you can plot entirely differently. Someone, as you said, a middle grade, we shouldn't have a 27-page outline, probably, maybe if it's going to be very detailed, but for all of that, also 5 points and a dachshund sticker. So Joel, we're on to you. So my question is your response to this. Basically, this is how this becomes a debate. So you've heard this, you've heard how this outline goes. How does it go for you? I'm assuming what you're going to tell me is that you just sit down and start going, but I want to be sure of that. And so tell me what's the writing process that's different. And if you need to sit here and just go, oh my goodness, that does not work for me. Sorry, Tracy and Jessica, you're welcome to do that. This is your time to have yourself heard and stand up for the pantsers who are not outlining.
Gotcha. So I also want to say that I'm also a self-published author. So it's a slightly different route than I think what some of the other people are doing. So I don't have any deadlines. So sometimes I don't feel like writing for weeks. Some days I feel like waking up on Saturday and writing for like 14 hours. So it's really dependent on how I feel there. And I try to also shy away from outlines because some of my chapters are pretty long because I feel like I need to get those emotions out. I feel like the story needs to happen. I'm getting all these free-flowing ideas. And some of my other chapters are really short because I'm not a big fan of writing anything that's forced. And I feel like if I had an outline, I feel like I'd have to write more and more and more, even though I feel that the story's already told. And I'd rather have it kept short rather than having something that's long I'm not 100% in love with.
In your world as a pantser, because I know what we're learning in this debate is that everybody works differently, even team pantser, team plotter, you guys do things completely differently, and that's fair. We're all different people. In your world, do you have any planning? I mean, do you have an idea of, I want to write about this person in this world first, or is it just I'm going to sit down at either in front of a piece of paper? I assume you have really good handwriting. If you do that way, it does not work for me. I'll show you that. Or in front of your keyboard, and do you just go, or is there any pre-planning at least about, I've got this guy in my head and I want to tell his story. I don't know what it is yet, but I want to tell it. How does it work for you as your type of pantsing?
So for me, I just kind of go about life not really thinking things too seriously, and I kind of had little pockets of ideas. So like for my first book, Mudcrab King and the Soft-Shelled Prince, I had a first little pocket of idea, and that was it. Like nothing else happened. It didn't go anywhere, and I waited.
Can you tell us what the pocket is, or will that give away the book?
Oh yeah, so I can tell the pocket. I can tell a little summary of it if that helps.
Yeah, what was the idea? Because we've heard a little bit in your intro, and at the end I do, I want everyone to tell me where to find you and what you've got coming up. So we've heard a little in your intro about the book. So it'd be really interesting to hear, what was that idea that came to you that said this is going to be and ultimately turn into Mudcrab Kingdom?
Yeah, so I definitely wanted Marcius, who's the main character, to represent myself, and he's Mudskin. So again, I also write middle grade like Tracy. So instead of African American or Middle Eastern or things like that, so everyone in my book who is African American is going to be Mudskin, and I wanted him to represent myself. So I kind of thought back, what was I doing when I was like in middle school, like in that age there? I felt confused because I'm also gay, and I didn't really know what's going on. I didn't know what being gay meant, but I knew what it felt like, and it only felt different. And I wanted to have a character that was trying to do something, being the first, because also in my family, I'm a first to do a lot of things, like first to get my doctorate, first to be the first African-American registered dietitian in my business that I work in. So all these huge things being the first, but there's no blueprint. So it's him trying to be a prince, making all these things, walking through life without a blueprint, but also struggling with racial bias, but also struggling with being different. So all these things there. And that was the general pocket. And I had no idea where it was going. And I tend to write like spontaneously. So I kind of wake up, have a big idea, and I write a bunch. And that's kind of how that goes. That was probably long-winded, but that's what I do.
No, that was perfect. And I think it's really important too, to get that out there, because that pocket of an idea, right? I like how you put that, a pocket, like, of this idea and how it has turned into a book. And I think from what you've said earlier, this is a series, right? This is Mudcrab Kingdom yeah. I mean, so it's not just a pocket of ideas turn into one book, and it's going to turn into quite a few more. And that's really, I think, interesting. Considering, the plotters, I sadly self-identify as a plotter in this generally, and that would not work for me. So I love hearing it from you, and I think it's important for other people to hear that as well. Okay, next head-to-head. Oh, I'm sorry, and Joel, for that, and especially I love, again, this pocket of idea. I'm going to hold on to that forever. I'm writing that down. on my notes that no one can read. Joel, 5 points for you, and a dachshund sticker, and also a cat sticker, because I haven't given enough of those away. And then, this actually real duck, but one that probably none of you will ever really see, but you have a duck as well. Enjoy that. That's new for this group. So plotters, back to you. I did this with the pantsers already, and they responded, and what I'm throwing out is this opinion, this idea, and it's a stereotype, and it's kind of like a backhanded it's a backhanded compliment, like, good job, but also. So I'm gonna toss this out, and it's actually kind of a backhanded compliment it's a backhanded thing for pantsers. So sorry, Joel, you will be answering this, but I'm going to throw this out, and I want you to tell me if you agree or not. It's this idea that writing is smoother for plotters because they have worked out all the issues in advance. Everything is taken care of and sewn up, and so they have a greater confidence in the story. And I think Jessica's talked to us a little bit about how she doesn't delve from the outline, but that kind of gets into this question of, once you've got the outline, is it always smooth sailing, or are there ever these rocky roads? So Jessica, to you. Sorry, I'm just throwing it right at you. Jessica, what
That's okay. I've written 12 books, and none of them were the same. So there are some books that are way easier than others. I wrote a rom-com last year in like 3 weeks. I needed like a week of editing. We put it on sub. It's fine. It was great. And then I have like a fantasy that I have been struggling with for like a year and a half. So, it really does depend on the book. And I will say that outlining has always made it easier because, I was fair. I tried pantsing one time. It was horrible. But I did try it. And the amount of work involved is just not for me. I can't do it. It took me like almost 2 years to edit the pantsed book. And even now I feel didn't really grasp the overall point of that book. So it was just like, it's not for me. But yes, sometimes things do go awry. I'll have an outline. It'll be perfect for me at the time. And then because I'm on traditional publishing, I'll have to leave and come back because I have other obligations. And then when I come back, I realize, oh no, something has gone wrong. And so I have to start over on the outline. That's happened before. Sometimes I will get into the book and be pretty far, and then I realize I kind of like botch the ending. So I'll just have to like put a pin in that, and that's for editing Jessica to fix. But I do think overall plotting is much faster. It's much more efficient. Even if things go wrong, it's like the difference between you burning, like you burn your eggs versus like you burn your kitchen down. So I would rather fix the burnt eggs than have to buy a new kitchen.
I really like how you put that too. And I think it's important, knowing my God, how efficient you are writing so much. But I think it's important for us all to see too that you can get really far in and realize, oh God, no, with the outline. And then I like what you said, putting a pin in it to fix it, because what that tells us is that sometimes our outlines can seem fantastic, and then, oh no. Tracy, what about you?
Wow, I really liked that egg versus the whole kitchen thing, because I think
Yes.
that makes a lot of sense. Of like, if I am in the outline and I'm realizing like, I don't know where this goes next, or like, I don't know how the character will grow from an experience like this, or going like having this one relationship or something like that, tells me like, Tracy, don't go 30,000 words into it without solving this first, because you will have to go back and try to fit the pieces in, and it's not gonna be the same thing. It's not gonna feel the same. So I know I agree that the outline definitely makes it smoother. There's nothing out there that will solve all of the problems, because I think with the kind of creativity that comes with writing, like you're always going to hit something like new and fun and challenging and horrible. But outlines and plotting and whatever tools you need to kind of keep the thoughts straight, I feel like that at least kind of makes it easier and gives you fewer excuses to get something done.
Okay. Awesome. Well, Jessica, Tracy, thank you so much. 4 gold stars for you. So yeah. Each, of course. I'm lumping you guys together because it's like you're my 2 plotters here, and I should not do that. But so it's 8. It's 8 for you split. All right, Joel. Like I said, that this is kind of a backhanded thing for pantsers, and that's okay, because my question to the pantsers in their head-to-head, the backhanded, the neg, I guess, for plotters was that plotted books are boring. I'll say that. I'll tell you that's what the ultimate, which yeah, I know everyone's making faces, and if you're watching this in gallery view, you can see them. If you're watching in speaker, you're just seeing me reacting to it. I agree. We know that plotted books are not necessarily boring, right? But so this is the same idea of this statement that I've made, this idea of the stereotype of writing being smoother for plotters because of the outlining and giving them greater confidence. It implies that the organic nature of pantsing means that their stories meander or hit unrecoverable roadblocks, and the meandering, I guess, without point, right? So it gets kind of pointless. What is your response to that? I'm going to assume you're going to say, no, okay. And I would agree, no, but tell me why.
Yeah, so the thing about roadblocks are like barriers. So something behind that is something you want to get to. So I'm going to give a little example. So a few weeks ago, I was getting ready for work, ate my overnight oats because I'm a dietitian, because some reasons. So I was heading to work, and the whole road to getting to work is blocked off. So I had to go this different route, I had to do these other things. But there's where the beauty and life starts to come out. So I got to see a new part of town. I got to experience a new road I never drove before. I got to use my GPS, which I never get to use. Eventually, I got to work. So I got to where I needed to be. So whenever we encounter barriers as pantsers, so things come up, plots don't align all the time, it's something that you can get over. So you can either go over it, you can plummet through it, or you can go around it. And that opens up this new story, and it keeps people interested. And as far as a point that I think you said about it kind of meandering, things kind of getting pointless, I normally stop myself. Like if I'm going in the story and I feel like, well, this is going on a little bit too much, I'm gonna kind of veer back, kind of get back on track there. But that actually seldom happens. Like whenever I write a story, I write it all the way through, and I don't change really much of anything. Like when I go back to edit, it's only grammar and spelling, all those kind of things. Everything seems to align, so I've never had a problem of things going too broad or going too long, because again, like Tracy, I write middle grade, so it's not super long, so we're not making 300-page books. So that's my response to that question.
And that was beautiful. Oh my, I have never heard that idea of a roadblock is there, and there's something you want to get around. That was wonderful. Everything about this panel, we are just getting so many great like tidbits of information, things that need to be on t-shirts or on like a placard in someone's kitchen. That was wonderful. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joel. All right, we are actually really close to time on this. We're the WriteHive gods may yell at me, like I said, if I go too long. So I want to finish this up, and we'll start with this group 1 here. What's your parting defense of plotting v pantsers that you want to give to listeners, either people who are not on your team or have never been on any team and are just starting out writing? If you could tell them one thing as they leave here today with plotting pantsing, what would it be? And if you have, Hannah, you've been fantastic giving us all sorts of save the cat and names of various things. Rachanee, Stephen King, I'm sure we could probably find some stuff there about that if you have any resources for our listeners, that would be fantastic as well. So we will start with Hannah because she's in the upper corner for me. So it's closest. Sorry, other ladies.
Got all my notes written out, so we're good.
Of course you do. And that's also why is I know you're going to have a list for me at the end. That's like, oh, here's
resources. Absolutely. You want to look into actually the history of plotters, where it comes from and why it's important. We're going into symbology, storytelling, and anthropology. Definitely check out, it's a little thick of a book, but Joseph Campbell. He is the man. George Lucas actually brought him onto the set of Star Wars to advise the plot for 4, 5, and 6, which is why they rock. And come fight me if you think the other movies are good. Not much being said. Check out The Hero's Journey. Check out Joseph Campbell. Check out, we all know Save the Cat. Dan Harmon's Story Wheel is another great one. Story Genius. I mean, Stephen King even wrote a book on writing. So lots of resources, lots of wonderful things. And the way that I have found all of my plotting resources is from other writers. So ask, hey, what do you do? How do you organize this? What I ask, I receive, because writers are great people, and then I make it my own. Ask, receive, make it your own. My parting words would be in the immortal wisdom of Fleetwood Mac: go your own way. Go get curious, find the thing and make it your own. Nobody's writing your rules. These are here to help you, not to hinder you. And the moment that any random arbitrary rule you set on yourself starts to hinder you, get rid of it. You are a full-grown human being and you are allowed to grow and change with your processes. Like, I love, Shameez, what you said. Just because you plot with one book doesn't mean you have to plot with the next one. Nobody's trying to rule you. Do what's best for you. And when you're planning a road trip, get a little curious and start asking the questions. What is it that you would like to see? Because you're the one driving.
awesome. Rachanee, what do we got from you?
Well, Hannah mentioned some really great resources, so I'm not going to repeat them. But if you think pantsing versus plotting, pantsing saves you time and money. Not only can you just jump right in, but you don't have to buy a big whiteboard. You don't have to buy index cards. You don't have to buy highlighters or pens or whatever. You just go to town.
I love that. And is this when I do I've got my thing of all my pens. Yeah, that's true. You don't need that with pantsing. I love that. I love that idea. Cheap. That's good. Shameez.
Are there any resources for pantsing? I mean, I don't think so. But my advice to anyone who is still trying to figure it out is to try both methods. Try the one that feels the most natural to you. And if it doesn't work, try the other one. There's no harm in doing that. My only thing about pantsing that I do recommend, and it's sometimes call myself a planter, dare I say, in this debate, is that it is important to learn the rules. As Hannah has pointed out, all the resources, it is important to know how the story works. And when you read your favorite novels, make notes. What was the inciting incident? What were the themes? What were the motivations? But that still doesn't mean you need to plot your own story. You can just know the rules. So when you're planning a trip, you don't have to know which beach you want to go to. You might just need to know that you want to swim. And whichever beach you end up with, that's okay.
This is awesome. So I'll just, before we turn to group 2, giving us their final thoughts, group 1, 30 points for each of you, 10 additional gold stars, and everyone gets an axolotl sticker because hot damn, you guys, that was fantastic. Awesome. Thank you, Tracy. Jessica, last but not least, give us your final pitch, your final plug for plotting.
I think if you are busy, if you are lazy, if you have a lot of things to do, plotting is for you because it works, it works for me. As far as resources, I also really like Story Genius. I also use, my friend is an editor, Jenny Chappelle, and I use a lot of her like free worksheets. You can go to her website and she has a lot of free like plotting worksheets. And then this is going to sound weird, but I have a resource for pantsers. It's called Refuse to Be Done. It's about editing, but like the entire first half of that book was all about how to pants. So it was completely worthless for me, but it was very useful for other people. So Refuse to Be Done. I think it was like a really good resource if you're a pantser. And it talks a lot about editing specifically after the pantsing is over. So I think that's a good book.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you all so much. And as our final send off, group 1, where can we find you? Everyone listening, they may want to find you. We want to find your books. We want to find your Insta and Twitter. Like I follow Shameez, and I got 2 more people I got to follow now on this group. Where do we find you? Shameez, can we start with you?
Sure, let's start with me. I'm Shameez Writes on Instagram and TikTok. Again, apologize in advance for the TikToks as well. And at Shameez04 on Twitter. A cat.
The best.
Sorry. Completely short circuit whenever I see one.
Sorry, he likes to boom bomb.
Let me just come back.
Shameez Writes.
Yes, Shameez Writes. It's fairly easy. No one's got my name. The tweets are mostly unhinged nonsense about the celebrities that I have crushes on, and the TikToks are me being a clown, but in between some useful writing things. So do follow.
I love it. And you got The Last Feather right there. Where can we find that?
Yes, it can be found at most bookstores, I believe. So go for it. I'd love it if you read it.
Awesome. All right, Rachanee, where can we find you? And tell us who this kitty cat is too.
I apologize, Shameez. I think my cat was like, I'm awake now. It's time to see what's up. This is Riley. He's actually my writing buddy. So he's usually sitting on my lap when I'm writing. So yes, if you want to find me, Rachanee.net, you can see the spelling of my name. It's just my first name, .net. I'm on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Rachanee Lumayno. Books are everywhere, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, all that good stuff. So yeah, that's me.
Awesome. Thank you, Rachanee. And I'm sorry, there's another cat now. So that's,
Oh,
I think I said I was a cat person. I have cats. This is my cat. Mine aren't allowed in here because they would be right here the whole time. And then, they're not as good as questions as I am. So,
keeps coming up.
Hannah, where can we find you?
Well, I don't think Princess Mononoke, my cat, is going to show up. I'm really disappointed. She just ran away from me. But you can find me here at, sorry.
It's because they're pantsers. They do what they want.
They do as they please. If you've ever read T.S. Eliot's Practical Book of Cats, like the actual poetry book, it's cattywampus. It's ridiculous. You can find me here on WriteHive. I'm a resident editor. You can listen to me on the Word Nerd Cafe. To find anything, services, editing, books, my hub is authorhannahcates.com. Social media kind of makes me sick to my stomach, so I'll pop in every once in a while, but usually Discord or my website. Please DM me, shoot me an email. I'm moving to Boston, so I'm going to be hanging out in Salem, Massachusetts. So if you guys are feeling witchy, come visit.
Awesome. Okay, that is fantastic. Now I'm going to move over to group 2. Okay, and we'll come back. All right, group 2, we have finished this up. Everybody watching this at home, and I'm not going to make that joke a third time, but everyone watching this at home, none of these people are in the same place. Neither of these groups are in the same place. And yet I think it is absolutely fantastic and phenomenal that we are hearing completely different things and we're getting so much knowledge. And not repetitiveness. Like that's what I was a little worried, because we are doing this in two pieces, that group 1 and group 2 would just be saying a lot of the same things, and we're not. And I think that is fantastic that you are getting 6 completely distinct ideas about how to plot and how to pants. And so with that, we have heard from group 1. Tell us where to find them, what they're up to. And that's what I want, is that you have been a resource for everyone. Both groups have, but I want to hear from my group 2, and particularly because you were the second, so this is a bit choppier of a setting for you all than from group 1, who got it a little easier. Sorry, group 1, you did. Where can we find you? What have you got going? Tracy, will you tell us?
Yeah, so I am online at tracybadua.com. So like my name is spelled in this corner here. And my latest middle grade, The Takeout, came out May 9th. So that's in stores. It's about a Filipino Indian fusion food truck, and there's some folk magic in there and a rat. And I hate rats, but I threw it in because I knew I had to challenge myself, but I still hate rats. Anyway, tracybadua.com.
Love it. And I don't know that I like rats, but I like Remy from Disney stuff. So that sounds fantastic. And I love, you've got that great book cover there, Freddy versus the Family Curse. Joel, let's move on because you're next in my little cycle here. Joel, tell us, where can we find you? What have you got going on? How can we find your books?
Yeah, so my book is on Amazon, and all my social media outlets are tied to Mudcrab Kingdom. So mudcrabkingdom@gmail.com, Mudcrab Kingdom on Twitter, Mudcrab Kingdom everywhere. Yeah. And I do
Awesome.
want to throw out two quick things that I forgot to bring up a little bit earlier, because I felt bad because Tracy brought up some things that are kind of on the Panther side. So I want to bring up at least one thing that's on the plotter side. So map building. In my story, I just go, oh, they went northeast. And then the next chapter I go, they went west, and then they went all these different directions. If you were to plot out all the directions on the map I say exist, it would go like this. So that's another thing there. And I am curious, because Jessica brought it up earlier, what anime soundtracks do you go to? Like, what are your go-tos? Mine are To Your Eternity, Promise Neverland, Attack on Titan, and also Beastars Season 2 specifically. So I want to know what yours are.
And those are some great resources too. This is not in the resource question, but those are good resources. Write that down. Jessica, if you wouldn't mind, I want to hear where can we find you, what you've got going on, and then yes, tell us your anime soundtracks. Those are the resources that we need to hear.
I am on Twitter at jlee100. My next YA Monstrous comes out in September 12th. And that's really funny you said that about rats, Tracy. I had to write about snakes. And before the book, I did not like snakes. But now I really like them because I did so much research. So I like that you still were like, no, I can't do it with the rats. But now I would never have a snake, but I admire them. So, and then the anime that I love To Your Eternity. I cry every time I watch the first episode. Every single time. It doesn't matter how many times. And AOT is obviously a classic. The superhero one, My Hero Academia. They have really good music, great music. And then I have just a bunch of eclectic anime openings. I'm really obsessed with the opening of, oh shoot, what's the show? It's recently. Oh, Hell's Paradise.
Very obsessed. I was just about to say that. Oh my god.
Yes, okay. I'm obsessed with that. Just the drums and the chanting. I'm oh yeah, I can write the best fantasy to this. And then I watch a wide variety of rom-coms and dark fantasy and shonen. So I have a lot of songs for every mood that I'm in. So yeah.
Awesome. And I'm really glad because I think that this shows in speaker view. And so Jessica, since you don't have a camera, it's on the last person that spoke. So it's been me reacting to what you're saying. And I was so bummed because Joel, when you started talking about Attack on Titan, those things, the reactions that he had in his video, no one is seeing it. So I'm glad, at one point he did say something so that we could see. There is a lot of joy about anime in this group, and I think that is fantastic. Well, again, thank you so much. Thank you to Group 1, who is technically, they're already gone. We recorded this multiple days apart, but thank you to Group 1, since I didn't do the final with them. Thank you so much, all of you. I did ultimately, I have tallied because I did actually keep a tally. It's not a good, but I did, and I would love, nobody will ever be able to read this. I did keep a tally, and I have the winner of our debate. And I know someone is going to be saying, well, excuse you, you've already said you're a plotter. How dare you? Aren't you biased? Well, yeah, but I also have ethics. Thank you. I can think this through. And so the gold medal of this debate goes to the plotters. Bias, right? But
I think this was scripted.
yeah,
It
I'm a
was
plotter,
rigged.
so-
I will
Yeah.
take it.
but we're not done. So gold medal, there's always more, right? And first place goes to the Pantsers.
Hey,
Yeah,
surprise, Panthers.
Very cheesy. I know, very cheesy. But there is no right or wrong. We know that what we've learned. This has been fantastic. Thank you all. And some or all of our awesome presenters will be here live, and they will be answering your questions while you've heard this, but they may also be able to stick around for a few minutes after to answer in chat. So thank you for that.